Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. It's popular nowadays to say ICE is bad, but there's no better representation of American values right now than ISIS.
ICE is waging war for everything that's holy in this country. I guess you could call it a holy war.
ISIS, guaranteeing my ticket to heaven.
Take it from me. No organization is better than ISIS.
ISIS!
Comedian Michelle Wolf comparing ICE officers to ISIS terrorists. The left's amping up its attacks on the men and women who keep our borders safe. And here's New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
This administration is on a crusade against people who they do not consider original Americans. What they've done at the border is an example of it, what they've done in Puerto Rico. And they are on a jihad to deport as many people as they can who they believe are not in the United States legally.
Tom Homan recently retired as acting ICE director under President Trump, and he joins me now. So, Tom, what is your emotional reaction when you hear comedians and politicians denigrate the men and women who protect our country at the border?
It's the greatest insult to the men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE. Look, you know, the comparison to terrorist organizations. Does this comedian understand that ICE investigates terrorist organizations? We are the largest participant in the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We have presence in over 30 countries across the globe, what we call the Visa Security Program. We prevented nearly 8,000 people from getting a visa to come to this country that our intelligence show were coming to this country to do harm. So for the men and women that serve this nation proudly every day, it's an insult. She doesn't know the first thing about serving her nation.
Yeah, I mean, she's comparing the people that are protecting her from terrorists to terrorists. Completely insulting. I want to show you some video of, you know, the guest we had just on before you, Charlie Kirk, was down there riding around with an ICE agent at the border, and they were talking about some of these kids, the minors, that they had, you know, briefly separated from their parents or so-called parents. And here's what he had to say. It's pretty interesting.
These kids are like, they're hardcore, dude. They'll take your lunch money when you're 5.
Yep.
Immediately after we separated them, they established a hierarchy within the areas that they were separated.
Are you kidding me?
So there was one child,
like 8 years old, 9 years old,
that was running the entire team there and telling other kids what they needed to do, you know, and taking their cookies. It was weird, taking their cookies and stuff like that. We had another separation where they were having sexual relationship through the chain link fence.
Now, this week, I believe, finally, the Trump administration has reunited officially under a court order the families, so-called families, the ones that actually were families. But I just want to get your take on some of these people down there. Yes, there were innocent children that were separated, and that was a very hard thing to watch and experience. But some of these people weren't their parents. Other people were human smugglers, drug traffickers, and some of these minors, you know, 16, 17, 15, some hardcore people.
First of all, I want to talk about the Governor Cuomo real quick, but what ICE has done on the border about family separations. You need to learn the difference between Border Patrol and ICE, first of all. You want to abolish an agency for something another agency does. I support what the Border Patrol did. I believe in family separations, because when you get arrested and get prosecuted for a crime, just like any American family, you're going to get separated. But getting back to these kids, Operation Matador, an MS-13 operation that ICE did in New York, on Long Island, New York, last year. 40% of the MS-13 people we arrested entered this country as unaccompanied alien children.
You're kidding me.
No. So some of these children, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the plight for some of these people. But when you violate laws of this country, you got to be held accountable. But understand, when we talk about separating children, vast majority of these children are between the ages of 15 and 17.
Yeah.
These aren't toddlers we're talking about.
And I just think that people that are watching this need to understand the realistic scenario down there at the border. It's not a bunch of, you know, kids with popsicles coming across in strollers. So it's a very vicious and dangerous situation. And, you know, you're trying to be humanitarian, but at the same time, you're trying to protect the country. Now, Nancy Pelosi says the Democrats are the ones that are really protecting the borders. And guess what she called 9/11? Listen to this.
When we had the 9/11 incident and the commission was formed and they made their recommendations, they made recommendations to protect America. But the Republicans would never take them up. And some of it was about our borders.
I don't know what's more preposterous, her calling 9/11 an incident or her claiming the Democrats are stronger on border security.
I was asked about this earlier this morning, and my first response was, what color is the sky in her world? I've seen her make a lot of preposterous statements, but come on. I mean, does she support the border wall?
No.
And that's been effective every place to build it. Do they support shutting down the loopholes of immigration? Let's talk about family separation. You know why families are separated? Because her and a lot of people that are with her failed to fix the loopholes that cause these families to come to the border. So I've said it 100 times. I've said it 100 times more. There's been nobody that has done more for border security and public safety than President Trump. And I've worked for 6 presidents. I respect them all. But nobody has done more than this administration, President Trump. That's just a stone-cold fact of a guy that's done it for 34 years.
All right, Tom, well, thank you for your service. And President Trump needs a little help on Capitol Hill if he wants to get everything straightened out down there. And I appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate you, sir.
All right.